What's up, sports fans? This is the Lucas Ross Sports Channel. We continue with our 2025 predictions for the upcoming 2025 college football season. The Florida State Seminoles are up next. Florida State, of course, coming off one of the most disappointing seasons in all of college football last year. Last year, they were just 2-10, so they only won a couple of games, did not win a single game, or actually they won one game at least in the ACC, but that was about it. So yeah, disappointing year for Florida State. That was expected to be a playoff team last year, and then possibly one of the favorites to win the ACC championship as well, because I had this team actually winning the ACC last year and making the playoff. Obviously, that was a disappointing prediction on my part. My thoughts on this team, though, before we get into the predictions for 2025, I think Florida State's going to have a turnaround of a season, but I don't think they're going to be a playoff team or like an ACC contender. They might be a dark horse team, but there's definitely a lot of question marks, especially after a disappointing year last year. First off, on the offensive side of the football, it really does come down to Tommy Costello's of how good of a quarterback he'll be in the passing game. The wide receiver position, they don't really have a ton of depth there. That's definitely a concern in my opinion for this offense for the Seminoles. I like the running backs though. I think the running back game and the running back game overall is going to be really good for Florida State. Defensively, I think they'll be good on that side of the football. I don't think it will be great, but I think it will be solid for them. So yeah, Florida State, that's really my thoughts about this team. Let's now get to the schedule. Here is that schedule for Florida State. Again, the Seminoles, they were 2-10 last year in 2024. So let's go game by game, and I'll give you my official prediction for this Florida State football team for 2025. And of course, they're going to start things off with a home game against Alabama out of the SEC on August the 30th. Saw that this game, of course, was going to be a noon kickoff, so I wonder how that's going to go here for both of these teams, especially if it's like hot weather for both of these teams. But this might be a game where Florida State might be competitive for a little while. Maybe in the first half it's close, but I just think Alabama is too much, for Florida State to handle. Alabama's definitely got a lot more talent on the roster, and they have a new quarterback as well in Ty Simpson. I just wonder how good he's going to be as well for this Alabama team. But Florida State, they're probably outmatched in this one. I think Alabama is definitely the slightly more talented team. I think Florida State's defense keeps them in this game for quite a while, but it won't be enough. I think Alabama pulls away in the second half, and they at least win it by a couple of touchdowns. Maybe it's probably one of those low-scoring defensive games where both defenses are just absolutely even, but I think Alabama wins it. So I think Florida State starts off the season with a loss to Alabama, so that puts them on like a, probably a 9-game losing streak compared to last year, or maybe like a, 9-game losing streak compared to last year's season. But, they start off 0-1, but then I got them bouncing back with a couple of wins over East Texas A&M, and then also Kent State here on September 6th and September 20th. They actually get a bye week before playing Kent State, which is not a really good spot for a bye week, but I got Florida State now improving to 2-1. And then they open up conference play on a Friday against Virginia. This will be a road game for Florida State. I don't think it's going to be an easy game here for the Seminoles. Upsets do happen a lot here in these weeknight games. I don't really want to call it an upset, though, because Florida State's coming off a really disastrous year last year. You look at this Virginia team, they lost, quite a few people from last year, quite a few players, I should say, from last year's team. Virginia's a team that really is not getting talked about a lot to be potentially a lot better this year, and they really haven't been better in the last, few years. So they haven't been the worst team in the ACC in the last few years, but I just don't think they're going to be really that good. And I think Florida State's definitely the better team here, and I think Florida State's defense is probably going to be enough in this one. I think it's probably a close game. I think it probably does go into the fourth quarter, but then Florida State, they probably pull away by that time, and I think they probably win at least by 10 to 13 points. So I think the Seminoles go on the road and beat Virginia here. Again, a close game throughout until the fourth quarter, and that's where I think the Seminoles will pull away. So that puts Florida State now at 3-1. Then they play rival Miami at home on October the 4th. I don't think this is going to be a close game at all. You look at this Miami team, a lot of talent on this roster. I think Florida State's defense can keep them in this this game for quite a bit. Maybe in the first half, it's kind of like similar to the Alabama game. But Miami is just too much on, both sides of the football. They're too talented. Obviously, they have some question marks on the defense. Last year's defense, obviously not that great. But I think Miami definitely is the better team here. And I do trust Carson Beck a lot more at quarterback than Tommy Costello. So I'm going to go with Miami to get the win. I know it's a home game for Florida State. They can absolutely win this game. And I know it's a rivalry game as well. But I got Florida State losing this game. So that drops them to 3-2. Next game is at home against Pittsburgh on October the 11th. I think this is a pretty even matchup. You look at this Pittsburgh team. Last year they had a pretty solid year. They got off to a pretty good start, and then they started to kind of fall apart late in the season. So yeah, that's definitely a question mark here for this Pittsburgh team. And like I said, this is a pretty even matchup. So it's a 50-50 game, close game to call. Home field advantage will be the difference. I'm going to say that Florida State wins this one in a pretty close game. So that puts Florida State now at 4-2. Then they go on the road to play Stanford on October the 18th. So Florida State has to travel out west here in this one. So that definitely could be a little bit of an issue here for Florida State, especially having to travel out west and not get a bye week before playing this game, obviously. That obviously will be tough. Playing on the road at Stanford, it's a very tough place to play, but I don't expect Stanford to be all that great this year. They have a new coaching staff. They're going through a coaching change, and this program just hasn't been able to head back in the right direction for a very long time, maybe about a decade or so. So yeah, I think Florida State gets the win here fairly easily. Maybe it's a close game for a while because of the travel and everything, but I think Florida State at least gets the win. So I got them improving to 5-2, and then they get another bye week before playing Wake Forest at home on November 1st. Wake Forest could be a little bit better this year. They actually have a schedule that sets up pretty well for them. That's really the reason why Wake Forest, a lot of people are saying they could be a lot better, but I just don't think the talent is there for them like it used to be. They used to have a lot of playmakers. They used to have a pretty good offense as well that would really score against really talented teams, but Florida State's playing at home. I think after the travel and everything out west to Stanford, they get some time to recover from that trip, and they also get a bye week before playing Wake Forest. That's going to help them out a lot, and they also get this game at home. So I think Florida State wins this one. I think it is a close game, though. Maybe it goes into the fourth quarter just like the Virginia game goes, but I think Florida State gets the win. So I got, the Seminoles improving to 6-2. So that's 3 wins in a row from that stretch from October the 11th to November the 1st, but then it's a tough test at Clemson on November the 8th. I don't really see this game being all that close either. I think Florida State, when they play a talented team, this year, you look at Miami, Alabama, those 2 games, I don't really see those being all that close. Again, maybe they're, right there with these teams in the first half, but second half, maybe the team does pull away, and I think that's probably the case for Clemson, but, this game probably will not be close at all. It could be a blowout. The Clemson Tigers are just really experienced on both sides of the football, and Cade Klubnik is a quarterback that you definitely have to trust more than Tommy Costello. So I'm going to go with Clemson here to win big in this one. So that gives Florida State their 3rd loss of the season. That puts them at 6-3 on the year. After that, they play a home game against Virginia Tech on November 15th. I've kind of been back and forth on this game between these 2 teams. I think both rosters are actually pretty even. You look at the quarterback position, Virginia Tech has their starting quarterback coming back from last year. So which quarterback do I really trust? I really can't really choose a quarterback in this game, though, for this one. It was just a tough game to call. I think it's a coin flip type game. It's kind of similar to the Pittsburgh game. It's just a coin flip type game, and it's also a 50-50 game. So with that being said, I think home field advantage might be the difference in this one. So I'm going to say that Florida State gets the win, but I wouldn't be surprised if Virginia Tech gets the win here, even though it's in Tallahassee. I think Florida State, though, playing at home, they win this game, and they also bounce back after the loss to Clemson. But, they probably come in here a little bit beat up after they lost to Clemson after playing a physical Clemson team, because in the history of college football, we've seen some teams, come in the next week a little bit beat up. That could be the case here for this game against Virginia Tech, but I got Florida State improving to 7-3, and they actually play back-to-back road games to close out the year. They play on a Friday, though, against NC State on November 21st, so this is actually their second weeknight game. NC State is a pretty tough place to play. I think the Wolfpack are going to be a solid team. This should be a team that should be right there around 6 or 7 wins. They are a consistent program in the ACC. I think it will be a close game, and this is also kind of a coin flip for me. So I think NC State actually wins because of home field advantage. So I'm going to go Wolfpack here in this one. So that gives Florida State their 4th loss of the season. That puts them at 7-4, and then they close things out on the road at Florida on November 29th. This is also another game that I don't really expect to be all that close. Florida's going to have a lot of, good players on the offensive side of the football. Their defense also should be pretty solid. But like I said, against the talented teams for Florida State, Clemson, Miami, and Alabama, they might be in these games in the first half, but second half, that's where a team can really pull away. And I think that's also the case for this game. I know it's a rivalry game and anything can happen. Florida State definitely can win this game, but it's on the road. It's a very tough place to play at the Swamp. So I'm going to say that Florida gets the win here, and they close out the season with a loss at Florida here. So also back-to-back road games. So I got Florida State finishing 7-5 in 2025. I think that's a pretty fair prediction for the Seminoles. It's definitely a lot better compared to last year, and it's definitely a turnaround of a season. But like I said, I don't know if Florida State will be a playoff team, and I also don't think they're going to be like a top contender in the ACC. They will be a dark horse, no question about it. They still got some talent on the roster, but this is a very tough schedule. You got Alabama and Florida both out of the SEC, and then you got probably the top 2 teams coming up in the ACC in Miami and Clemson. No SMU, of course, but yeah, Florida State has a very tough schedule. But I got this team finishing 7-5. I can definitely see this team probably going 6-6 as well. But that's my prediction for Florida State. Do you guys agree or disagree with this prediction? Let me know down in the comments below, and give me your prediction for this team as well. Thanks for watching this video, and stay tuned for more sports content videos on my Lucas Ross Sports YouTube channel.